face the camera. Yeah, it's just emotion. So we're spending just a few minutes here with Carl DeFranco of the Town of Western Zoning Board. I had questions about planning boards and zoning boards and joint meetings. So my question is, in a joint meeting, how do you determine who takes the lead in a joint meeting? And
we do it by whoever's meeting is scheduled for that night. So on the third Monday, that's the planning board's meeting night. So on that night, Pete would be the chair of whatever's going on. On the fourth Monday is the zoning board, and if we meet jointly, I would be the chair of that, and then we would control whatever else is going on. So we share the responsibilities like that.
Okay, so when you have a meeting like that, it's a joint meeting.
Phil. Smoking again, Phil?
Yeah.
Not sharing it.
If it's a planning board meeting, the zoning board has no say.
We're advisory. That's it. That's all we've ever been to this thing. Is we said we've had experience with the existing zoning law, with rulings that we've been facing and stuff. So we provide them with input to it. The planning board is the one responsible for actually drafting the document and doing all the paperwork and stuff.
Okay, so if it's a zoning board meeting and the planning board is there, it's being controlled or managed by the zoning board.
Well, I would control whatever is official zoning board business. Once we go into a working session, it's generally considered just a cooperative effort and we look at the stuff.
So that's my question. When you say generally and when you say officially, my question is, are those members of the board that aren't on the zoning board on a zoning board
She
night?
doesn't really wave. She's got a few people.
Oh, no, she does.
Are they just members of the public at that point?
She got a few people.
Until we say, you know, we're done with old and new business and we're just going to work on the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I heard he was.
After that, it's just a working meeting
Where are they going?
with the zoning board in charge and the planning board contributing. On the opposite way, when it's the planning board thing, if there's planning board issues, that board handles it, and then we just go into a working session where everybody contributes to it.
So I want to drill down on that. When you're talking about a working session,
It's still a public meeting.
right, but is that working session managed by anyone?
In the paper,
In other words,
the realtor did. Did you see the ad in the paper?
Nah,
what I see in a zoning board meeting is planning board folks deliberating with the zoning board, but it's really a zoning meeting.
No, the planning board members have no voice in whatever is affecting the zoning board.
Okay,
So if we have a request for an interpretation or an action on a variance, the planning board members get no say in it. They're just general public. When we finish with that official business, with an appeal or a request for an interpretation, once that's done and the zoning board has taken whatever action we take on it, we go into a working session, there's no longer zoning board business there. This is just general business of trying to get the ordinance written up. So we go back to planning board is really responsible, zoning board is adding assistance.
Let's look at last week. So last week was a planning board meeting. We had Mitch and
Jen.
Yeah, and they were here. Now, before you took a vote, you discussed a number of things that you had handed out. They got a copy of that as the public, I guess. They got a copy of that. And they were reviewing that, and they were deliberating with you during that process.
We're informal enough where we let them comment, but that's just it. They're just comments. The planning board doesn't have to do anything with their comments other than say thank you for your input. And we have done that in the past. A couple of times we've had to do that. So, okay, enough.
So, and I've seen in the past that you've given public comment in your meetings when it's not a reverent per the book kind of a thing, and you would just say any comments from the public.
I mean, if somebody's here and they want to offer a comment, sure. I mean, I don't have any problem with that. I mean, it's one of those things. We're not required to do that.
Understood.
I don't really see any reason not to.
Okay.
As long as we're not disrupting the business going on, I don't see any purpose in cutting somebody out just because the rules say we don't have to.
So with respect to that differentiation of those two groups, of those two boards, how
think
do,
eventually you're gonna see them.
the state doesn't recognize a joint meeting of a zoning and a planning board, correct?
There's no, I haven't uncovered anything that defines a joint meeting, but there's nothing in there that says, no, you can't do that. Again, it's
Yeah, I think
1 week,
I've seen
one
that.
board is in charge, the other week, the other board is in charge. Now, keep in mind, the zoning board of appeals is just that.
I mean, most of
The
sites
only
in that-
original jurisdiction that the zoning board exercises is on, right now, conditional use permits. And under the proposed ordinance, it'll be the special use
I didn't see
permit.
it so much this year.
Other than that, if somebody doesn't appeal, we don't do anything. We can't make rules, we can't just say, hey, so-and-so did such and such. No, you can't do that.
That comes through the Scott Bush.
And that's, well, not, but yeah, if Scott refers somebody to the board because he made a ruling they don't believe in.
That comes to you.
He gives them, says you'll have to appeal to the zoning board. He'll let us know, we'll schedule it.
Yes.
Okay, and that's for interpretation, use variance, area variance. But anything else is out of our jurisdiction with the exception of the conditional uses. And that's by law, that's what the law says, and that's our only thing. The planning board, on the other hand, has a little bit broader assignments. They're responsible for doing the comprehensive plan. If a zoning law like we're working on now comes from that actually is their responsibility. So once we get all of the approvals done that we're waiting for now, the planning board will forward all of that reviewed stuff to the town board and say, we've completed the work on the zoning board, it's been reviewed by all of the appropriate agencies, here it is for your action. And from then on, the town board is responsible for what happens with it.
Right. I know last week we talked just a little bit about a 5-year plan and for the comprehensive plan for the town. And I was concerned that you're kind of hopping on the very end of the comprehensive plan with the zoning plan. And your response
but
was...
we actually started working on the zoning thing barely a year after the comprehensive plan
And
was
it's
put in place.
taken that much
It
time.
has taken a huge amount of time. And there's so many people who've been involved. We started off with the old ordinance, looking to revise that. The Tug Hill Commission, who comes down and advises, came in and said, here's some sample ones. So we went back and looked and said, yeah, you know what, we probably ought to look at the whole thing again. So we went through that. We started off, and one of the things I've been saying for years, we don't have enough definitions of things that weren't even considered in the old zoning law. So we rewrote the definitions first. We went through that several times.
And that took...
We asked, do you really need that in there? Can you put it in there without any harm or whatever? So that took, I'll bet you that took us 3 or 4 months to get through, because then we were only meeting once a month.
Right.
And, you only get so many hours out of people.
Right. If you look at the hard numbers, you're actually trying to put through a zoning ordinance at the tail end of a 5-year viable comprehensive plan. So is it not reasonable to take this into the beginning of the first year, even if it's 3 or 4 months, and say, okay, what is there on this comprehensive plan that could impact what we want to push?
Do you know how long it's going to take us to revise the comprehensive plan? It took
3 years, 5 years?
I've been on the planning board, I think this is my
I think they're pushing towards 50,000.
6th or 7th year.
That isn't even a 14.
It took the first 4 years I was on the board to get them to finish.
So it's going to be 9
It
years
takes
possibly.
time. My guess is, well, now that the current one is in place, we can go back and instead of having to generate a plan, which is what we had to do before.
Yes.
Now we can go back and look, so do we see anything changing in here that is going to affect the town? Do we see anything changing in here that we really should be considering or whatever? And if there's a couple of changes we make and we get it done in a year, which I would consider to be a good time, given everybody's part time, it'll probably take us another 6 to 8 months to go back and look at the zoning ordinances. Anything we need to change based on what we saw as a deficiency in the plan or the new plan. So I mean, there's a process there, and unfortunately, with a lot of us, Town of Western doesn't have a planner.
You can make it.
You go down to the city of Rome, they got a planning department.
Totally.
And they got a codes department. They probably sat down and wrote all of their stuff, and they could do it in no time at all. we're stuck with a bunch of volunteers who sometimes can make it to meetings and sometimes can't, and it just takes time.
It's piecemeal.
So yes, so I don't think there's anything in the ordinance that isn't reflected in the comprehensive plan. There might be some stuff that is carried over from the old plan, but I tried to modernize it as best possible. And this isn't a brag, but most of the actual writing was copied from somebody else's ordinance. I went through and fixed it up and changed the language to make it read better. The old ordinance, I think, I don't know who came and helped him do it back in the 70s. There was a lot of stuff in there that the language has changed, the laws have changed. So in fact, one of the things I carry around with me, there's a Department of State guide on planning and on planning boards. There's a guide on zoning boards. There's a guide on revising and rewriting your zoning law. So they provide all of this training for us. And once a year, we get to go either up north, or the last couple of years been over the Turning Stone, and they bring people in that provide you. Tug Hill Commission does this, yes. And they bring people in. There's usually a couple of lawyers there that cover both planning and zoning. And one year, one of the lawyers brought in a whole series of court decisions. Says, these are the kinds of things that are being decided. These are the things you have to be careful to make sure you do properly. Because if somebody gets a bug up there behind and they want to go protest it, you're probably going to lose in court.
So I've heard you express in the meetings before that those meetings are some of the meetings that made you hold up on the zoning to put in place things that you learned in those meetings to bring to the town of Western. That is awesome.
There are several changes we made in there that basically, as they say, on advice of counsel. And the lawyers that come in there, they practice real estate law.
Yeah, they do it every day.
So, and they do it every day, so they can come in there and you can ask them questions about it. I remember asking a question once. I said, well, suppose somebody comes in and they're asking for a use variance, and it appears that they do meet the 4 tests. Are we required to give them the variance? And the guy said, yeah, you are.
Okay.
So then we meet the test, you have to give them that variance because they've met the burden. And I said, okay. I said, that means, nobody on the board can say, well, I still don't like the guy on the board against it.
Okay.
And one of the other things we do is, most of the votes here have been pretty much unanimous, either in favor or against something. We normally record the votes, and Beth knows how to do that. And normally if somebody votes against something, you ask them to state a reason for it. So that it's not just, well, I don't like the color of the guy's eyes. So that's not a legitimate reason.
What about the opposite of that, though, Carl? What if everybody votes no except for one? Do they have to state the reason why they voted yes?
No, I would ask the other ones to explain why they voted no. In other words, if there's a motion to approve, say a use variance, and one person votes yes, and you can ask them, say, why did you vote yes? Because in my opinion, they met all the required tests. You ask the other 4, why did you vote against it? Well, I don't think they met this test. Why didn't they? So they're supposed. The reason to do that is so that you have a record of why the stuff is there. And it's basically a CYA thing. If somebody says, I didn't get treated fairly, they file an Article 78 and you have to go into court and answer, you better have good notes on why something did or didn't happen. Sometimes even that doesn't work.
Okay, so we're spending just a few minutes here with Carl DeFranco of the Town of Western Zoning Board. And he's working on a zoning ordinance that's going to hopefully be put through sometime at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So thanks so much for doing this.